He was a weak slave gladiator, but he won 100 fights to earn his freedom and became a legend. In 54th century AD, a 15-year-old boy named Nero became the emperor of the Roman Empire, and anyone with more than one functioning brain cell should have known how bad this decision would be. Even before Nero came to power, the Roman Empire was not the ultimate civilization as modern society paints it. Well, at least not for those who lost their homes to the attack of the Roman forces. The 14-year-old Cess was one such pitiful boy whose village had been attacked by the Roman army, and he, along with other able-bodied boys, was enslaved and taught how to fight so that they could become WWE stars, who were then known as the gladiators. While everyone was crammed in a dark and damp cell that reminds me of Diddy's basement, the boys fought even for the pathetic food they got. Their leader was a guy named Rocco, who kept everyone in line and told them to be nice to each other. Cess always stayed quietly in a corner, and Rocco always helped him out. It seemed that there were obviously sparks of love flying between both of them because, according to Tumblr historians, everyone during that time was gay, but they hid it. However, this did not last for long, and one day the soldiers took them out of their cell for the final selection. Their master Valens told everyone that only the winners would be trained further as gladiators who would fight in the Colosseum, and the first match of the selection was between Cess and Rocco. Cess is worried because Rocco is obviously the biggest and strongest guy in the group, and he probably only wants to fight him in bed. However, his master Zafar makes him wear some spiky gloves as he tells Cess to use the boxing skills he has taught him to win. Rocco already pities Cess and thinks that he should knock him out with one punch so that he doesn't suffer. However, as he leaps towards him, he is the one who comes out with an injury. No one can understand what just happened, but Cess is trembling as he sees the blood on his hands. Zafar tells him to stop holding back because it is disrespectful to his opponent, and this shatters Rocco's male ego. He attacks Cess furiously, but he easily dodges all of his unrefined punches. He doesn't want to fight back, but knows that this is the only way to win the match. So when Rocco tries to attack him again, he hits him with a sharp jab before giving him some body blows that make him fall on his knees. Rocco can't even get back up, disappointing the slave master. The boy himself is dumbfounded because he never thought that his twink boy crush was so strong, and he gladly accepts his defeat. However, as Cess tries to help him back on his feet, Rocco's back is pierced by arrows, and the light leaves his eyes quickly. Cess is both furious and sad at this, and he angrily stares at the soldiers who shot Rocco, asking why they had to kill him. The slave master Valens speaks up, saying that he has no need for losers and only the winners can survive in this world. After that, Valens brands the letter V on Cess's hand to mark him as his property, along with other winners, who will now be trained further and sent to fight in the Colosseum. He tells the slaves that they will fight for him, earning glory and wealth. He then promises to free anyone who wins 100 fights in the Colosseum, but losing even once will grant them freedom from their life. After that, Cess resumes training under Zafar, who used to be a slave gladiator once, but after he injured his knee in a fight, he became a coach. Soon, he takes Cess to the arena in Rome because a grand fighting competition is being organized to celebrate the new emperor's crowning. Once they reach the capital, Cess is amazed by how grand everything looks, but he loses his way while distracted. He runs into a blonde boy slightly older than him, who introduces himself as Ruska and guides him to the arena. As Cess waits in the cell for his turn, one of his friends returns there after his fight. He is badly injured, but he still won because his opponent was a kid, but others were not so lucky because they had to fight adults and they lost their lives. Immediately after that, Cess is brought to the arena to fight an older and much stronger looking man. However, he is no match for Cess's agility and skills. Cess easily dodges all his attacks and then lands some swift punches to his head and body. He then lands a full-winded punch to knock him down, and the man doesn't stand back on his feet. Cess is declared the victor, but as he celebrates, a crowd demands the execution of the loser. They throw stones at him and give him a thumbs down, and the fighter raises his thumb towards the emperor to beg for mercy. The emperor Nero is a wimp who doesn't know what to do, and that is the historical inaccuracy of the year. Suddenly, Cess takes the loser's hand and gives the emperor a thumbs up, requesting him to spare his life. Zafar panics on seeing this, but Nero is ready to spare the loser's life. However, his mother is a total Karen who insists that both the fighters be executed because no one tells her son what to do except herself. However, the general asks her to calm down because it would give a bad impression if someone else made the decision for the emperor. In the end, they go with the crowd's demand and execute the loser, while Cess gets punched by Zafar for getting carried away. This wimp begins crying because he doesn't want his opponent to die each time he wins, and Zafar pulls his chain in a totally kinky way, telling him that he has no choice in anything because he is a slave, and the only way he can get his freedom is by constantly winning. Just then, a soldier comes there to call Cess and his master since the emperor wants to see them. Nero is really curious to know Cess because he was impressed by his fight, but his mother is more interested in the macho man behind him. Zafar introduces himself and the Dowager Empress recalls hearing his name. The general Demetrius says that Zafar was a famous slave gladiator who fought against him 10 years ago, and it was the fiercest match of their lives. That fight cost Demetrius his eye and Zafar his leg, but neither of them has any regrets about it. With that, Demetrius tells Nero that he has arranged one final fight for him, featuring his own son, Ruska. He tells Nero that boxing is a crude combat technique, and he has taught his son something that is much better than that. The fight begins, and the veteran boxer charges at Ruska, who uses his momentum and slams him to the ground. Cest is surprised to see this move, but there is more to come. The man attacks Ruska again, who easily parries his strikes and then slaps him down. He then completely lowers his guard, luring the man to attack him, and just as he comes close, he grabs his hand and slams him to the ground. Ruska then breaks his arm, ending the fight immediately, and the crowd begins cheering him on. Nero asks Demetrius about the martial art his son used, and he replies that it is the ultimate martial art style called pankration. It's basically all the martial arts fused into one, like the modern-day MMA, and Demetrius proudly tells Zafar that his son will inherit the style and be his student. Soon after that, Cest and Zafar go outside, where they run into Ruska. Cest goes to talk to him, and then Zafar decides to wait outside the palace since the Emperor has called both the fighters to his chambers. Cest and Ruska walk inside, where they find Nero playing music because he is a chill guy. Cest is so moved by his music that he starts crying, and Nero immediately comes to hold his hands and ask for more affirmation. His attendant tells him that it is time for him to greet the public, but Nero cancels that and tells her to leave him alone. Once she is gone, he asks Ruska and Cest why they fight and what motivates them to live in such a harsh place. Ruska tells him that his father taught him martial arts because he wants him to become an elite soldier like himself. Cest says that he fights because he has no other way to earn his freedom. Nero suddenly gets philosophical on hearing this, and he says that no one is truly free because even the birds are chained to the sky. He says that their lives are already decided by a lot of factors and the gods don't care about what they want. While Ruska thinks that he is going to have trouble serving such a wimp, Cest wonders why Nero is not happy even though he is the Emperor of Rome. Just then, Nero's mom comes there, angry because he canceled his public greeting session. She tells him to order the two gladiators to fight immediately. Nero tries to convince her that this is not the right place and time, but since when do Karens listen to other people? She commands Cest and Ruska to fight, and Ruska immediately accepts her order, telling Cest that they have no choice. That was the same thing his crush Rocco said before losing the fight and his life, and Cest doesn't want to fight. However, he truly has no choice in the matter. He is free from his chains, and then he asks Nero's pretty attendant for a cloth to wrap around his fists. She gives him her silk belt, and just as Cest is wrapping it around, Zafar and Demetrius come there. Zafar is furious about what is happening, but as he realizes that it was the Dowager Empress's command, he regrets not accompanying the boy inside. On the other side, Demetrius tells Ruska to crush Cest in an instant without mercy, and the fight begins. Cest is confident in the speed of his punches, but Ruska has no difficulty deflecting them. Cest decides to change his approach and tries using a hook, but Ruska has no blind spots and he hits him in the face with his knee. Cest loses his balance and Ruska pulls him towards himself, whispering in his ear to keep his head safe. Cest doesn't even understand what's going on, and then Ruska slams him to the ground, driving the air out of his lungs. Ruska begins strangling him, telling him to go to sleep. Cest struggles to stay awake, and even as Nero's attendant asks him to tap out, he refuses. Nero doesn't want to see this, but as his mom tries to force him, he suddenly lashes out at her. He cries as he tells her that he doesn't want to be the emperor or her puppet, and she can keep the throne. His mom starts crying, saying that he hurt her feelings after everything she went through to fulfill her greatest desire to see him as the emperor of Rome. Her emotional blackmail works against the soft-hearted Nero, and he runs after her to console her. In the meantime, Ruska has knocked out Cest, and his dad tells Zafar that his student is weak, just like him. After everyone leaves, Demetrius punches Ruska, calling him pathetic because he used a chokehold to force his opponent to submission instead of breaking his bones and ending his career. Ruska swallows his rage, but he swears that one day he will kill his tyrant father. On the other hand, Cest and Zafar head back. Cest cries because he was utterly helpless against Ruska. Zafar tells him that he gained a lot of valuable experience from fighting a genius, and he should use that to become even stronger. As time passes after that, Valens and his training school are ruined, and all the useful slaves are auctioned to other bidders. Cest gets passed around to rich people like a join among my friends, and eventually he ends up as a slave to a fat man who operates a fighting group. He takes all his slaves to the city of Pompeii to fight, where he meets a local noble there who is organizing a fighting tournament. The noble tells Fatty to enroll his slaves into the tournament, and he gladly obliges. The noble then assigns his assistant, Broken Nose Kun, to show them around. The assistant takes them to a swimming pool, and Cest says that they can use it for training. Just then, another slave gladiator arrives there, telling him to get out of his way. One of Cest's comrades steps up to fight the big and angry man, but then Broken Nose intervenes and tells everyone to practice without causing any disturbance. The silver-haired man puts on weights around his wrists and ankles and starts training like Rock Lee. Everyone is curious about what that weirdo is doing, and Broken Nose tells them that this guy is Emdem, the strongest gladiator in Pompeii. He is quite moody and doesn't like anyone interrupting his training. Some of the fatty slaves make fun of him for his weird training, but Zafar tells them to look again because Emdim is maintaining a hard stance while walking ahead, and it is not easy to do so for long periods. But the mad lad has been doing it for years now. After that, Zafar decides to train the slaves about how to throw punches more skillfully so that they can do great damage even against heavier opponents. He tells them about hitting the chin in such a way that the head swings violently, which rattles the opponent's brain. However, Seth's attention is completely on Emdim, and he wonders what motivates that guy to keep up with his unreasonable training. At night, Seth gets lost while trying to look for the toilet, when suddenly, he sees a person on the wall. He thinks it is a thief and goes to confront the woman, but she suddenly slips, and he decides to help her instead. The woman coldly asks him who the hell he is, and the frantic Seth introduces himself as a fighting slave. He then asks her who she is, and the woman is shocked because he doesn't know her. She stands in the bright moonlight, and Seth is smitten by her beauty. He falls to the ground, and just then, Broken Nose comes there after hearing a commotion. He greets the woman as Sabina, the daughter of his master, and asks when she returned from the capital. She tells him that she came here just now and wanted to surprise everyone, but Seth found her and ruined her fun. The next day, she goes to the place where Emdim is training with other slaves belonging to her family, but they refuse to work out with him since they don't want injuries right before a fight. Sabina suddenly calls to Emdim, teasing him by saying that he is like a dog in his determination to grow stronger. She asks him what he even wants to do by achieving ultimate strength, and he replies that he just wants to fulfill the promise he once made to her. Sabina says that she doesn't even know what he is talking about and then tells him to focus on his training. After that, she goes to meet with the manager of her family, who tells her about the fighting tournament that is going to be held soon. Sabina is not interested in it at all, and just then, a woman comes crying to her asking for help. She tells Sabina that some nasty men have made her bar their base, and they are eating and drinking without paying and even beating other customers. The woman fears that she might go bankrupt at this rate, but Sabina tells her that nothing will happen. She commands Sest and his friends to come with her so that they can settle the problem with their fists. She takes them to the bar where a bunch of drunken slaves are acting like big shots. Sabina asks them to get out this instant, but when they refuse, she tells Sest's group to deal with them. The boys attack the drunk men, and Sest shows his boxing skills as he defeats opponents much larger than him. Sabina is impressed by his strength when suddenly, the leader of the thugs attacks Sest. Sest dodges his attacks and then begins rattling his jaw with his sharp punches. However, he fails to knock down the old man, who throws him to the ground and makes a run for it. Sest chases after him, but the old man is faster than him, which is pathetic considering that he is an athlete. He gives up on chasing him, and then Sabina comes there to complain that he let the main culprit get away. Just then, Broken Nose comes there and tells Sabina that the matter has already been resolved. Envim comes there just then, dragging the old man who has been beaten to an inch of his life. Everyone is impressed by the strength of their champion, but Sabina is not. She tells him that he came too late, and his replacements have already handled the rest of the thugs. Envim tells her that it was unwise of her to trust outsiders with such an important matter, and Seth's friends take offense to that. Sabina tells Envim to know his place because she doesn't need advice from a slave about what to do. She tells him that there is no use for him now and asks him to return to his world. Envim grits his teeth as he asks her why she shuns him, and she says that it is because he failed to fulfill his promise to her. Seeing them like this, Broken Nose wants to stop Emdim from hurting himself anymore. He knows that the guy likes Sabina just like most men in the city, but no matter how much effort he puts in, he might not get as close to her as he wants. He remembers the day Sabina turned 18 and all the men from the city gave her expensive gifts. Emdim also wanted to give her a gift, and Sabina laughed at him, asking what could a slave even give her. Emdim dedicated his record 30-match win streak to her, but Sabina told him to make it 50 if he wants to prove her worth. She promised to free him and make him her guard if he manages to accomplish that, and it is the reason Emdim trains so hard each day. Sabina tells him that he has 2 more victories left till he earns her approval, and he promises that he will get them in the next tournament. The big guy in Seth's group calls him a pervert and insults his motivation. He challenges him to a fight and even ropes Seth into it, saying that they will surely defeat him and end his streak. They are about to fight right in the middle of the street, but everyone else manages to keep them away. That night, the noble prepares a great feast even for the slaves, and Seth and his friends eat meat for the first time in a very long time. Seth starts gobbling up the meat, thinking it will help him grow bigger and stronger. Zafar asks him what is wrong with him, and Seth tells him about his brawl with the old man today that made him realize that he lacks power and a finishing move. Zafar warns him that the more powerful a move, the greater is the cost to use it. However, if Seth is willing to take the risk and cross his limits, he can teach him a move that can knock out his opponent in one hit. Seth takes the offer, and Zafar tells him that he will teach him the move after dinner. But just then, Broken Nose comes there and tells Seth that Sabina has called for him. Seth goes to Sabina's room, where she asks him if he would like to be bought by her and come to roam with her. She tells him that if he becomes her boy toy, he would be free from this life of endless fighting. Seth is shocked to hear this and asks why she chose him. Sabina says that she needs a servant, and since he is stronger than he looks, she can use his services as a bodyguard as well. Seth says that she already has Emdim for that, but Sabina turns that idea down immediately. She says that Mbem has no grace and she can't bear him because his gaze is creepy. She says that she would prefer someone young so that she can teach them some manners, and then says that she is going to negotiate with Cest to master it by him. He stops her, saying that he can't take up her offer because he no longer wants to be bought or sold. He remembers the time when he was auctioned and Nero was the one who bought him. The lonely emperor just wanted a friend, but being a slave, Cest could not stay with him all the time. This made Nero even lonelier, and in his desperation, he chains Cest like an animal. Cest sheds a tear as he finishes the flashback and tells Sabina that he decided that day not to be anyone's slave. He swears that he will win his freedom with his 2 fists, and for that, he is willing to suffer. Sabina gets angry at him and considers his refusal an insult. However, Cest doesn't give a shit about her feelings and asks if he can leave now because he was in the middle of eating. Sabina throws her fan at him, telling him to get out and never show her his face again. As Cest goes outside, he regrets turning down the offer to serve such a beautiful woman, but he decides to be a man of his principles and focus on his training. On the other hand, Sabina is still smoldering with rage and she calls for Mbem immediately. She tells him that she will do him the favor of watching his fight, but she wants him to face Cest as his first opponent and then defeat him so badly that he regrets being born. The next day, the news about the new fixture reaches Cest, who is not fazed by it and decides to devote the remaining time to training as hard as he can. On the other hand, Mbem is also practicing with his mates before the fight starts. He thinks that his defense is perfect and no one can defeat him in terms of the raw damage output. He begins remembering Sabina's words where she told him that she offered to make Cest her servant and he refused, so he must be punished. Mbem was furious when he heard that because even though he had been faithfully serving as her slave for many years, she never even talked to him kindly but offered a stranger to be her servant instead. He has now realized that he is of no value to Sabina, and he plans to use that bitterness and jealousy against Cest to defeat him and win his freedom. Soon after that, the day of the tournament comes and both the fighters prepare themselves for an important match that will decide a lot of things for them. Mbem enters the ground first amidst the roaring cheer of the audience. Zafar and his students are surprised to see his armed guards that go all the way to his elbows, and he realizes that he is going to focus on defensive strategies. After that, Cest enters the arena, and suddenly, the crowd turns against Mbem. They call him a coward for fighting a kid at the end to make sure that he hits the record of 50 consecutive victories. They tell him to get a new opponent, and Mbem Loki agrees with them. He thinks it is a disgrace that he has to fight this boy, and he thinks that he must defeat a couple more fighters in the same day and earn some sort of redemption. He takes his stance, and Cest amps himself up so that he doesn't get intimidated by his large size. As the referee gives the signal, Cest charges ahead at Mbem, trying to overwhelm him with his swift punches, but he can only hit Mbem's guarded elbows. He realizes that such attacks won't do anything and decides to increase his speed even more, but Mbem blocks everything. He believes that Cest is just trying desperately to put up a good fight so that the crowd doesn't condemn him to an execution. He thinks that he will get tired soon and keeps defending, but instead of slowing down, Cest picks up more pace. He manages to find an opening in Mbem's defense and punches him in the face, throwing him to the ground. Everyone is shocked to see this, especially Sabina, but the crowd suddenly realizes that they got their money's worth. Mbem gets back on his feet, realizing that even though Cest hit him, there wasn't much power in his punch. However, he now admits that Cest is a full-fledged boxer, and he won't go easy on him this time. He gets back into his stance, and now Cest is panting because he used too much effort earlier. Mbem decides to attack him first this time, and Cest is surprised at how swift he is despite his bulky build. He keeps dodging Mbem's attacks even as he gets close and invades his personal space. Cest moves back to keep his distance, but Mbem is just trying to make him lose balance. He suddenly throws a long-winded punch, and Cest loses a bit of balance while trying to dodge it. Mbem then pulls his hand back to attack him, and that further destabilizes Cest and distracts him from Mbem's real attack. He somehow blocks it and launches a counter, but Mbem ducks and then forces his arms apart. He hits Cest's chest with his palm and then throws a punch, changing its trajectory at the last moment to hit Cest's head with the side of his hands. Cest is knocked to the ground, but he gets back on his feet to continue the fight. However, Mbem's hit to his ear has left him feeling dizzy. He thinks that he can't hold out much longer, but to his surprise, Mbem doesn't make a move. He just holds his stance while smiling creepily at Cest, who thinks this is his chance to close the gap. He begins launching rapid punches at Mbem, who just wants him to struggle as hard as he can, so that his end is dramatic enough to satisfy Sabina. Cest can't find a way to attack his head, so he decides to aim for his sides, but that was exactly what Mbem was waiting for. As Cest ducks to target his stomach, Mbem hits him with a hammer fist aimed right at his nape. Cest is out cold with one hit, and Mbem walks back confident about his victory, because no one has got up after eating his ultimate move, which has killed a couple of his opponents already. Cest's coach and friends call out his name, telling him to get up, but he is completely out of his senses. As his senses return to him gradually, he hears Zofar's voice telling him to get up. He gets back on his feet, wondering who the hell is Cest, that everyone is asking to get up, and what is he doing right now. As he sees the referee, he suddenly realizes that he is Cest, and he has an incredibly tough opponent in front of him. He gets ready to fight again, but his mind is completely numb from the attack he ate earlier. He doesn't even remember what move Emdem used to knock him out, and his mindset has been reset to normal. He can't keep up with Emdem's powerful attacks and gets knocked to the ground again. He wonders if he is going to lose, but then he has a flashback montage that gives him the determination to keep fighting. He stands up again, and Emdem gives him one last warning to quit now or he is really going to die. As the referee asks Cest if he can still fight, he begins to weigh his options. He is still afraid of Emdem, whose fighting style is different from what he is used to, but then he suddenly realizes that he trained hard for this fight specifically. He remembers that Zafar taught him a killer move to defeat any enemy in one hit, and he decides to use it right now. The crowd is getting impatient now, and they begin hooting at Emdem, asking him to finish the kid quickly if he is the strongest gladiator here. Emdem wants to tell them that he is really not holding back, and by all rights, the fight should have ended when he hit Cest with his ultimate attack. However, he not only regained consciousness quickly, but also got ready to fight. Emdem gets into his stance again and begins walking towards Cest. He backs away instinctively, but then Zafar yells at him to go forward. Cest obeys and steps towards Emdem, throwing a punch that misses his head. He starts feeling his legs giving out, and Emdem attacks him just then. He luckily dodges his punch and lands a weak hit to his side before falling to the ground. Cest gets back on his feet, and to his surprise, his weak punch seems to have hurt Emdem. Everyone is also surprised to see Emdem holding his sides, but Zafar gets what is happening. Earlier, when Emdem used his ultimate attack at Cest, he couldn't dodge Cest's swift punch aimed at his ribs. That must have broken some of his ribs, and now that Cest hit him in the same spot again, he suddenly felt all the pain at once. He thinks that with the broken rib as his weakness, Emdem is not as invulnerable as he seems. They continue their fight, with the crowd getting more excited with each passing moment. As Broken Nose sees them, he remembers the time he was a poor, starving orphan. One day, Sabina came to the city to take one of the orphans as a fighting slave, and she said that she could take only the strongest and bravest one of them. Her words gave the herd of starving boys enough strength to fight amongst each other, and seeing that cruelty flipped a switch inside Sabina that shaped her personality. In the end, only Broken Nose and Emdem were left standing. They fought against each other, and Broken Nose used his height to his advantage, pinning Emdem to the ground. However, at the last moment, Emdem headbutted him with his full strength, and that is what gave Broken Nose the physical trait that has now become his identity. He surrendered, and Emdem was taken in as the fighting slave of Sabina's family. However, even though he lost that match, Broken Nose thinks that he won in life. He was also taken as a slave and taught how to read and write. He started working as an assistant, and he lives a much better life than most slaves thanks to that. However, as he sees Cest fighting desperately against an enemy much stronger than him, he is moved. He begins cheering for him out of respect for his determination, and others join him. Soon, the entire stadium is chanting Cest's name. On the ground, Cest and Emdem are still trying to get the better of each other. Emdem's moves are slower because of the broken rib, but he still sees a chance to land a finishing blow. However, the moment he tries to do that, Cest gives him the slip and hits his broken rib again. He then tries to aim for his head, but Emdem blocks his attacks and punches him away. However, now he is in even more pain. He decides to endure it because that pain is nothing compared to his dedication, and changes his stance to make it harder for Cest to hit his weak spot. Cest is intimidated by his strange stance and wonders if Emdem is going to try any other unusual move, but then Zafar yells at him to stop chickening out. He tells Cest to attack because Emdem is just trying to buy time to mitigate his injury. Cest obeys and charges ahead, exchanging blows with his opponent. Emdem decides to hit him with a 3-punch combo, but Cest dodges them all and then almost lands a hit on his face. He feels that he is getting used to Emdem's movements now, but his moves are still hard to predict. Cest thinks that if he can use his speed correctly, he can land a hit on Emdem even if he punches second, but Emdem is ready to eat as many punches as he can, so that he can land just one hit on Cest. Suddenly, Cest's forehead starts bleeding from the wound Emdem gave him earlier, and the blood trickles down to his eye, blocking his vision. Everyone realizes that Cest can't perform at his full ability now, and Emdem thinks this is his lucky break. He returns to his original stance, confident that Cest can aim for his weak spot now. On the other hand, Cest realizes that because of the blurred vision and his built-up fatigue, he can't fight much longer, so he decides to put everything he has got into the finishing move that Zafar taught him. Cest and Emdem stare at each other intently, and when the first drop of blood from Cest's forehead falls to the ground, they charge ahead at the same time, aiming to finish the match with one hit. They begin throwing punches at each other, and Cest uses his speed to find some openings and lands a hit at Emdem's broken ribs again. This makes Emdem lose his balance, and using his quick footwork, Cest leaps right behind him. He sees his exposed neck and hits him with a solid punch, just like Emdem's own finishing move. That punch knocks Emdem out, and the entire stadium erupts into cheers for Cest. No one can believe that he managed to clinch this match despite being at a disadvantage the entire time. However, Sabina is not going to have this. She tells Emdem to get up if he has any shame or honor. She tells him that if he loses now, all his hard work will be in vain, and she will never forgive him. She commands him to fight, and suddenly, Mbim comes back to his senses. He strains to get back up, and Cest begins praying that he stays down. However, even after pouring all of his strength into it, Mbim cannot lift himself off the ground, and he falls there unconscious. The referee declares Cest as the winner, much to Sabina's shock. Cest finally heaves a sigh of relief as he accepts his victory, and his friends are overjoyed. One of them asks Zafar if that was the finishing move he taught Cest, because that was almost the same thing as Mbim's ultimate attack. Zafar affirms, saying that he is also surprised that Mbim came up with that move on his own. Back in the arena, Mbim comes back to his senses and he has trouble processing that he lost. The mob, on the other hand, has completely turned against him. They begin insulting him for losing to a kid and even accuse him of doing it on purpose. The people who had placed their life savings as bets on him winning are even more furious, and they demand the loser be killed. More people join them, but Cest isn't going to let them do as they please. He wants them to respect the genuine strength and hard work of Mbim, so he raises his thumb as he asks them to spare his life. The angry mob starts cursing him too, but then Broken Nose speaks up, telling the people who lost their money that it was their fault, and they have no right to insult people who are risking their lives in the arena. More people join him, and soon it turns into a faction war between the audience instead. Sabina's servants see the tension rising, and they ask her to evacuate the arena immediately, but she has other plans. She asks them to remove the tent so that everyone can see her. Everyone falls silent as she comes out in the open, and then Sabina smiles at them, telling them the show's over and they should behave themselves and head home. She tells them to come back again to see more fights since the tournament has just begun, and no one can go against her. After that, Sabina turns to Mbim, telling him that he fought well, but this is the last time they are seeing each other. She walks away, and Mbim is left speechless by her words. The next day, Cest wakes up surrounded by his friends, who tell him that he collapsed just as the commotion ended. Broken Nose is also there, and he asks Cest if he is feeling well. Cest asks him about Mbim, and he replies that he hasn't suffered much injury apart from his broken rib. However, his heart is in shambles now because he has been disowned by Sabina for losing and ending his winning streak. Cest is shocked to hear that, and Broken Nose explains that noble houses have to keep up their reputation untouchable, so they discard anything that may bring shame to them. He then says that Mbim always longed to receive kind words from Sabina, but he got them only after he lost and right before she left him for good. He is too heartbroken by this and has given up on fighting. The big guy in Cest's group is furious because he can't get to fight him now, and he decides to go wild in the remaining span of the tournament to blow off some steam. The other fighters also leave Cest alone to rest, and he asks them about Zafar. One guy tells him that he went to confirm something and should be back soon. Zafar has gone to see Mbim, who asks him what he wants. Zafar introduces himself as Cest's teacher, and then comes straight to the point. He says that the move he used to knock Cest out and the moves Cest used to defeat him were almost entirely the same, except for the final bits of execution. They were even named the same, both being called Decapitator, and that is enough to make Zafar suspect that Mbim did not develop the technique himself but learnt it from someone else. Mbim decides to come clean with him and then begins the story of what happened 5 years ago. He says that he was always a loner and didn't get along well with his peers. His physique was nothing great as well, and he was not too skilled in boxing either. He worked hard all day to become stronger, but his unplanned training was not showing any fruits. Then one day he got so desperate that he started praying to gods to help him continue boxing. That is when he saw a mysterious man sitting right in front of him. Mbim had not seen him come there, but the man had always been present while he was practicing. He told Mbim that the reason he wasn't growing stronger was because he lacked a clear goal. The man then unraveled Mbim's secrets one by one, including his injuries, his habits, and even his desires. Mbim was in complete awe of him and asked if he was an angel sent by God to help him. The man replied that he had just observed him like Sherlock Holmes, and anyone can do that with a bit of practice and concentration. He then told Mbim that people like him who have determination but no direction tend to lose faith after not achieving results, and that is why he suggested he become his student. Mbim fell to his knees asking if he could make him stronger, and the man revealed that he had been only a third-rate fighter his entire life, but because of that, he understands the pains of slow growth better than anyone else. He was ready to take a student who could achieve things that he could not do in his career. He began training Mbim for free, teaching him about the low stance and the killing blow called the Decapitator. Mbim became stronger under his guidance and constantly won fights. However, on the day he used his ultimate move to kill his opponent, his master vanished without a goodbye. As Mbim finishes reciting his story, he says that his master may be still teaching some helpless fighters how to box for free, but Zafar tells him that it is not for free. He knows the mysterious man well and tells Mbim that he only teaches fighters who have potential. He teaches them techniques so that he can research his theories and beliefs, and he has no noble morals that make him do it for free. Once he has gathered all the information from one of his students, he vanishes and finds another test subject to teach. Mbim asks him if he learned from that man too, and Zafar affirms. He gets hyped up that the man called Democritus is still alive and perfecting his combat techniques to make them even more deadly. Soon after that, Mbim leaves on a journey after bidding Broken Nose farewell, and Zafar is confident that he will gain back his confidence and purpose soon, because he has been taught by his master. Meanwhile, the tournament becomes a huge success, and Rodok, the big guy from Seth's group, wins 5 fights in 2 days, becoming the star of the tournament. After that, the group decides to go to another city to take part in more tournaments, and Broken Nose bids Seth farewell, telling him to come here if he ever needs any work. As their carriage heads through the city, the people identify Seth and begin praising him for his talent and strength. They cheer him on, telling him to keep fighting and asking him to keep living. Soon after that, Seth and his friends are employed to build some roads. Their task is to break down the rocks and dig into the earth under the supervision of the Roman officers. One officer suddenly blows a whistle and tells everyone to gather around because it is lunchtime. Seth's friends are relieved to hear that, and they tell Seth to come along too, but he is too busy breaking rocks. They tell them that the food will be finished if he is late, but he tells them to go ahead. As he finishes his work and leaves the pickaxe, he is shocked to see that his hands have started bleeding. The same is true for the rest of his friends, and they are forced to eat food like animals because their hands don't work properly now. They complain that it has been 2 months since they started working as laborers, and now their hands are so damaged that they can't even form a fist. Seth tells them to stop complaining because Zafar told them that this is also a part of training, but his friends think that Zafar abandoned them here because he said he was going to buy milk 2 months ago and didn't come back. Seth slams his hands on the table in anger, telling them to trust in his master. However, he too has started to doubt his master. A couple of months ago, Zafar told them that they were lacking the decisive ability to turn around a match in one move, and his solution for that was to dig into the ground mindlessly each day till he comes to pick them up. They have been at it for 2 months, and now Seth is losing his mind because of how boring and uninspiring the task is. However, he doesn't know that many elite fighters train themselves in this way. Using a pickaxe to dig the ground trains the muscles they need to fight, and also it forces them to become mentally strong by pitting them against a boring and solitary activity. One day, as everyone is busy digging the road, Zafar comes there and tells them to stop. He orders them to follow him, and the boys are relieved that they can finally be free from this hellish labor. However, Zafar bursts their bubble by saying that this is just a temporary break, and they will have to dig the earth for 6 more months. The blonde drama queen passes out on hearing that, and then Zafar tells everyone to follow him to their owner. The fatty eagerly takes Seth to 2 Roman soldiers and tells them that he is the most exceptional boxer they have. He tells Seth that these soldiers are traveling around the country, recruiting talented fighters for a tournament that is being organized by the emperor. He tells Seth to be honored because they came looking specifically for him. The soldiers are uncertain about it because they find it hard to believe that a lean boy could be the Seth they are looking for. The owner tells them that they should not judge a book by its cover, and the soldiers say that they won't be the ones doing the judging. They say that since the tournament is going to be a grand one, fighters from all over the country are eager to take part in it. Therefore, some preliminary qualifier tournaments are going to be organized to select the strongest ones among them, and Seth has to take part in the boxing qualifiers as per imperial order. Seth realizes that this means he cannot refuse to take part, and the soldiers tell him that every man who reaches the main tournament will get rewarded, and the winner will receive the grand prize from the emperor himself, with his freedom guaranteed. Seth knows that this is a great opportunity for him, but he also feels anxious about it because he knows that he is right in the palm of Mura's hand right now. He accepts the order, and then Fatty tells the big guy named Rodok to take part in the mixed martial arts qualifiers so that their group can clinch 2 rewards. He then turns to Zafar and tells him to put the boys in fighting shape, and he replies that he is already working on it. Zafar takes the boys to the workset and tells Seth that since there is only 1 month left till the qualifiers, he will get his boxing training along with his training with the pickaxe. Seth wants to complain, but Zafar tells him to trust him because he will surely raise him to be the champion. Seth can't disobey his master, so he resumes his training. Soon after that, they reach the location of the preliminaries, and to Seth's surprise, they are not going to fight in an arena, but in a wooden structure with smaller arenas. He wonders what is happening, but Zafar and Fatty tell him that there are a lot of qualifiers happening at once, and they can't make everyone fight in the arena. On top of that, they even took an entry fee from them to participate to make sure that everyone fights really hard so that they don't lose the fee they paid. Seth complains that it is unfair, but Fatty says that it is really fair because this means that the winner takes it all and the losers are left with the loss. The selection begins the next day, and night arrives by the time it is Seth's turn. The crowd is rowdy, and they try to bring down the morals of both the fighters just for fun. Seth's friends cheer him on, telling him that he won't get food for a week if he loses, but others are more worried that he will be distracted by it. Zafar tells them that if Seth can't handle this level of distraction, he won't be able to perform on the bigger stages. However, Seth is not thinking about that at all. His main concern is how many fights he needs to win to make it to the main tournament and earn his freedom, and he doesn't even pay much attention towards his opponent. As the fight begins, Seth quickly overwhelms his opponent with his fast punches, not giving him any chance to make a comeback. Seth knocks him out within seconds, and the crowd falls quiet because this was not what they were expecting. Seth walks away as the victor, but he is disappointed that he didn't even get to fight. Zafar tells him that it is natural to feel that disappointment and then asks him what he felt about the arena. Seth replies that it was cramped and oppressive, like being thrown inside a cage. He says that it doesn't make a difference, but Zafar tells him that he is wrong. He says that a skilled fighter will use the small arena against his opponents and warns Cest to be ready for fighting strategies he has never seen before. The next day, Cest fights another opponent, and this time he lasts a bit longer. However, Cest is ruthless and absolutely smashes him, forcing the referee to intervene and declare him the winner. As Cest heads back to the back room, Zafar begins lecturing him, telling him that his form was not perfect and he is still making too big movements to turn sideways. He again reminds Cest that in the cramped arena he can't fight using the same style that he has always used. He asks him to be more careful, and then Cest suddenly snaps. He tells Zafar that he is already trying his best, and he doesn't need to nag at him because he will be more mindful the next time. He suddenly realizes his mistake, so he goes outside to cool his head, and his friends wonder what has got his panties in a bunch. Cest never used to lose his cool like this, and they think it began ever since they were put on pickaxe training. The next day, as Cest is digging the hard ground, he suddenly stops when he feels his hands bleeding. Zafar comes there and asks him who told him to stop. He has realized that the reason Cest is so irritable and impatient lately is because, despite his hard work, he can't see any result. Cest says that is not the case, and he feels that he has improved, but there is something lacking. He says that he can't quite put it into words, but there is something that he has almost grasped, but he can't fully understand what it is. Zafar asks him what he has even been doing for the past 3 months. He asks Cest if he has not used his brain a single time because he was too busy digging. Zafar says that he won't spoon-feed him every single detail from now on, but since he is so close, he will give him a hint. He tells Cest to think of the feeling he gets when he hits the ground with the pickaxe and apply that to his punches. Cest keeps hitting the ground again and again, even as his friends sleep. He tries to figure out what exactly his master wants him to notice, but finds no answer. The next day, he watches the fight of one of the strongest contenders in the tournament. It is a man named Felix, who demolishes his enemy and then proudly greets the crowd. Cest is impressed, and then some people near him start talking about Felix, who is actually a professional gladiator who takes part in small tournaments to earn a steady income. Soon, the day of Cest's next fight comes, but it is raining heavily, which delays the fight. As he gets bored while waiting for things to get better, Cest starts punching the falling raindrops. After a while, the referee comes to him and tells him that they are not going to wait for the weather to clear, and the fight will continue right away. Cest goes to the arena, trying to put his entire focus on the enemy in front of him. As the fight begins, he begins to land quick hits on his opponent, but nothing gives him the same feeling as wielding a pickaxe. However, at the last moment, when his opponent's fist is just about to reach him, Cest lands a very fast punch that hits before his opponent can even see. The man is knocked out cold with that, and Cest can't believe that he has become so powerful by digging through the ground. However, he instantly realizes that this punch gave him the same feeling as striking hard earth with his pickaxe. He thinks that just now he clenched all of his muscles right before his fist connected to his opponent's face, increasing the power of his punch by many times. That was just what he did when using the pickaxe, and he finally realized what Zafar wanted to teach him. After finally achieving enlightenment, Cest lets out a victory roar, and the next day he is in a much better mood. He encourages his friends to keep digging the ground and then apologizes for being too snappy lately. His friends tell him that he didn't need to keep all his stress bottled up, because even though they can't give him good advice, they could have at least let him vent out his stress. While they are bantering about it, the fighter named Felix comes there because he has taken an interest in Cest. He says that since only 4 candidates are left in the qualifier now, he wanted to see the second strongest one among them personally. He introduces himself and then tells Cest that they are going to meet in the finals, so they should have a good fight. They shake hands, but then begin squeezing each other too tightly because they want to prove that they are stronger. However, as Cest's friends say that holding hands for so long is gay, both of them back out. Felix then says that unlike the two of them, the other 2 people in the semis are covered in bruises, and this means they are lucky. He suddenly tosses a coin and asks Cest to pick a side. Cest chooses heads, and that is exactly what came up in the toss. Felix tells him that he always knew that Cest had luck on his side, and then he leaves saying that they will meet in the finals next. Cest is confused about his weird behavior, but he can tell that Felix is really strong. Soon, Cest goes to fight his semifinal bout, and as he is whooping his opponent's ass, Felix analyzes his fighting style. He can tell that Cest's offense and defense are both balanced, and he hits really hard despite his small size. He wonders where he learned to fight like this when suddenly, his gaze goes to Zafar in the stands. Felix recognizes him as the famous gladiator called the Wolf of Numidia and realizes that he is the one who trains Cest. He gets even more excited for the fight now because he believes that defeating Cest will be like defeating Zafar. That night, as Cest's friends sleep soundly, he can't get any rest. He keeps thinking about the finals tomorrow, and he is certain that Felix is going to be his opponent. He thinks that he has already done whatever he could, and now the rest depends on how strong his opponent is. He suddenly starts thinking what will happen if he loses, because then his goal to be free will be driven far away from his reach. He doesn't want that to happen, so he swears to win the final and make it to the main tournament at all costs. The next day, as Zafar tightens Cest's gloves, his friends complain that they didn't get to see Felix's semifinal fight, but he saw Cest's fight, which gives him the advantage. However, Zafar thinks that there is not much of an advantage because one cannot analyze the true strength of his opponent without facing them personally. On the other hand, Felix is doing a casual headstand while his gravity-defying skirt stays up somehow. He is confident that he is going to win no matter how strong Cest is, because he analyzed his fighting style yesterday and got some background information too. He does some stretches, saying that Cest is the perfect prey for him, and this will be a victory worth enjoying. Soon after that, both the fighters enter the arena, and the crowd is divided into two groups. However, they are not supporting the fighters for their skills, but because they have bet money on them in hopes of getting rich. The referee signals the start of the fight, and both of them get into their stances without making a move. Cest carefully observes Felix, trying to figure out his strengths and weaknesses, but he can't find anything. Felix is getting bored of the standoff, so he taunts Cest to come and attack him. Cest immediately gets close and launches a flurry of swift punches that Felix can only guard against. He realizes that he can't let his guard down against such fast attacks, but Cest mixes in a couple of long-winded punches in the middle to surprise him as well. Felix realizes that he will be at a disadvantage if he only keeps defending, so he decides to get into attack mode. He changes his stance, placing his hands at waist level instead of guarding his face. He begins walking towards Cest with a wide base and then suddenly attacks him with a winded punch. Cest dodges it easily, but that was just a feint, and Felix attacks him with his other hand. Cest thinks he can dodge that too, but Felix changes his direction at the last moment and hits him right in the head. Cest is too shocked to react, and he falls to his knees, wondering what kind of punch that was. Felix tells him to get up, asking if his greeting was too much to handle. Cest gets back on his feet, and Felix starts hyping up the crowd to get more momentum in his favor. Both of them take their stance again, and Cest decides to focus on his movements so that he can avoid his next punch. Felix gets close to him and throws some more long-winded punches, and even though Cest tries to dodge them all, Felix changes the direction in the middle and hits him again. Cest manages to avoid taking a direct hit, but he is more shaken mentally because he can't figure out his opponent. His friends are worried, and Zafar tells them that Felix knows how to use the cramped arena well. He is certain that Felix is really experienced and smart because he is using Cest's keen sight against him by confusing him with the long-winded punches and shaping their trajectory like sickles to curve in on him. However, that is not all. Zafar can tell that Felix has really flexible shoulders, and he is extending and contracting their range with each attack to confuse Cest about his range. In the arena, Felix continuously pushes Cest back, forcing his back against the wall. Zafar wonders why Cest is not noticing the weakness in Felix's fighting style when he suddenly notices that he is looking nervous and staggering a bit. Felix notices that too and asks Cest if he sprained his ankle when he fell to the ground earlier. He declares that luck is always on his side, be it a fight or gambling, and that is why no one can stop him from winning. Felix is confident that he is going to win easily now, so he was on the offensive immediately, driving Cest even back. He teases him, asking if he is only going to run away. However, Cest is not just mindlessly dodging his attacks but studying them. He has figured out Felix's breathing pattern and how it matches his attacks. As Felix throws the next punch, Cest gets close to him to dodge its trajectory and then hits him with a counter instead. Felix falls to the ground, and Cest's friends are excited about his comeback. Zafar tells them that since Felix attacks with wide swing, he leaves his middle vulnerable, and it is really easy to attack him by getting closer to him. However, he knows that Cest's punch was nowhere strong enough to defeat his opponent. Cest realizes this too, and he figures out that he didn't put enough power in his motion because of his sprained ankle. He thinks that if he had not been injured, he would have knocked out Felix with that punch. He starts considering himself the unlucky one, but now even Felix has started to take him more seriously. He puts up his guard so that Cest can attack him with the same technique again, and Cest realizes this. He knows that since he has already revealed his counterattack, he is at a disadvantage. He tries taking the initiative again, but this time, Felix decides to stop holding back. He begins throwing heavier punches at Cest, who feels the impact even after blocking them. Felix pushes him back against the wall, and when he tries to escape, he uses his feet to block him and then hits him down. Zafar realizes that since Felix has fought many battles in small rings, he knows how to trap his opponent well. This means that Cest won't be able to corner him without finding a solution, and his injured ankle will make it even harder. His friends are worried and ask what Cest should do now, and Zafar says that they should figure out that answer themselves if they are boxers. In the arena, Cest gets back on his feet, and he realizes that he can't win the match through counters, so he decides to push him away with his full strength. He charges at Felix, throwing rapid punches at his abdomen that deal a fair amount of damage. However, Felix uses his superior power to overwhelm him and pins his back against the wall. Cest dodges his finishing blow, but it seems that he has a plan. Felix doesn't want to give him the time to use it, so he keeps him under pressure with his powerful blows, not giving him a chance to move away from the wall. Seth's friends think that he is at a disadvantage, but Zafar tells them that he is getting momentum on his side. He tells them to watch how Seth is matching blow for blow with Felix, who seems shaken by his previous attacks and thus is not taking the risk to put distance between them. It's turned into a close-range fight, and since Seth doesn't have to move around anymore, he is putting his weight on his healthy ankle and targeting Felix's abdomen without rest. Zafar is confident that Seth is the one who has the advantage, and he cheers him, telling him that he can do it. In the arena, both the fighters are exhausted and out of breath. Felix tries to throw the wide punches again, but Seth dodges them and lands a powerful blow to his guts. Felix counterattacks, but Seth manages to land another solid hit to his abs. He starts dodging Felix's attacks more frequently, while repeatedly targeting his abdomen, and everyone is hopeful about his victory. However, Felix is not ready to back down, and he keeps throwing punches without showing any signs of having taken damage. He suddenly lands a hit on Seth's head that almost knocks him to the ground, but Seth powers through and gets back on his feet. He decides to put everything on the line and attacks Felix viciously, dealing a punch to his face and causing him to stagger back. They continue exchanging blows, but Zafar can tell that even though things are getting better for Seth, he doesn't have much strength left. He thinks that he should quickly find a chance and deal a critical blow to his opponent before he runs out of stamina. In the arena, Felix is getting flustered because he is not used to fighting opponents who can last this long. Even though Seth has his back against the wall, he doesn't look anxious anymore, and Felix attacks him again. Seth dodges his punch by ducking down and then punches his ribs. Suddenly, Felix finds that he can't breathe at all. He realizes that Seth has been tracing his breathing pattern, and he timed his last punch just as he exhaled out the lung in his air, and that is why he can't breathe. This is Seth's chance, and he fakes a punch towards Felix's belly, and as he moves his hands to cover that, he leaves his head exposed. Seth hits him with a jab and hook combo, and while Felix is disbalanced, he moves behind him for a finishing strike. He endures the pain from his broken ankle, and then strikes Felix's kidney with his full power, giving him the pain of his life. Felix falls to his knees and struggles to get back up. He realizes that Seth has been aiming for this the entire time, and he let him do as he wanted. As Felix strains to get back on his feet, Seth prays that he does not. His injured leg is at its limit, and he can barely stand now. He knows that if Felix can get up to fight again, he will have no way to beat him. On the other hand, Felix forces himself to move because he is certain that his luck has not yet run out on him. However, he cannot do that and falls flat on the ground, feeling as if his kidney has been stabbed by a giant nail that keeps him fixed in place. The match ends with that, and the referee crowns Seth as the winner. Seth raises his fist to declare his victory, and then the referee says that he is going to the main tournament in the boxing category, and the crowd loudly cheers for him. Seth's friends celebrate his victory as their own, but he is extremely exhausted now. He sits on the ground right in front of Felix, who begins to wonder how he could lose to this boy, even though he had a clear advantage from the beginning. Later that day, as Seth returns to his lodging, he runs to his friends in panic, telling them that he has very bad news. He says that he is going to die, and seeing the confused look on their faces, he explains that he is peeing blood. He is embarrassed to reveal that to his friends, and then Zafar also comes there to hear about it. Seth's friends think that it is a really bad omen, but Zafar tells him not to worry too much about it. He says that at the end of the fight, he and Felix attacked each other's guts, and that may have caused some internal bleeding that got into the urine channel. He tells Seth that it is a common thing after such intense matches, and he won't die from it. Seth asks him if he is sure, and Zafar affirms. He then congratulates Seth on making it through the qualifiers, and tells him to get some rest and recover from his injuries. Later, Seth sits idly while his friends train, and he starts getting bored. Thinking back on his life, he realizes that all he has ever done is train and fight, and he doesn't know how to spend this free time. He sees his shadow approaching him. He looks up to see that it is Felix, who asks him why he is looking so gloomy even after he won the fight. He says that he is going to leave this place now, but before he goes away, he just wants to see how badly he has injured the champion. Seth tells him that his body is really messed up and asks Felix if he is satisfied. He laughs, saying that he knew it, and asks Seth if he peed blood. Seth is shocked to hear that and asks if he is suffering from the same thing, and Felix tells him that it is obvious after he attacked his guts so much and even hit his kidney. Seth gets grossed out imagining the damage, and then Felix says that it is usually him who does all the damage to the opponent, and this is the first time he got beaten so badly. Seth then asks him what he's going to do now, and Felix replies that he's going to leave this place just like a loser should. He lets Seth in on a little secret, telling him that he got paid a little money for making it into the finals, so he didn't take a complete loss. Seth is surprised to hear that, and Felix says that the organizers don't reveal this at the start because they want everyone to fight desperately. He says that as soon as he gets his money, he is leaving this area, and then tells Seth that if fate wills it, they will meet each other again someday. Before going, Felix tells Seth not to lose in the main tournament because that will bring down his reputation as well. Seth replies that he can't promise to win every fight, but he swears that he will fight as hard as he can. Felix tells him that it is good enough and says that the rest is up to luck. He says that they should test Cest's luck for the upcoming main tournament as well and takes out his coin. Cest is not really interested, but Felix says that he loves gambling more than eating, and to him, life is just a big gamble. He tosses the coin, grabs it, and then asks Cest to select a side. Cest chooses heads, and that is what the coin shows. Felix tells him that he has definitely got it, and Cest asks him what he means by that. He replies that he is talking about luck. Felix says that even though it may just be a fluke or a lucky guess, if Cest is right so many times in a row, he can list luck as one of his strengths. However, Cest tells him that it was not a fluke because he could see the face of the coin as it landed. Felix's mind is blown away by this as he realizes that this time, as well as the last time they met, Cest made the correct choice after carefully observing the coin. He thinks that he has got the eyes of an eagle. Cest gets nervous on seeing his reaction and asks if that was not what the game was about. Felix realizes that it never occurred to Cest to rely on luck, and he has been doing everything with his abilities. He starts laughing and tells the confused Cest that he finally understands why he lost to him. He tells Cest that he might actually make it to the top of the tournament. He then decides to take his leave but stops midway again, telling Cest that if he gets depressed in the main tournament, he will get his ass kicked. He tells him to keep his head high and run ahead towards the peak of boxing, and Cest promises that he will. After a few days, Cest and his friends get ready to leave the town as well. They get into a boat where Zafar tells them that it is time to level up their training since they have used pickaxes for enough time now. He then hands Cest a pickaxe with a really thick handle that he can't grab fully with one hand. The other students try out the new handle as well and say that they can't form a grip properly on it, and it will fly away if they use it. Zafar tells them that the objective of the training is to improve their grip strength and focus. He says that as they get used to the thick handles, he will keep increasing their girth. The students complain, but Zafar tells them that a good grip is one of the most important factors that will help them deliver a powerful punch. The students say that they will do the training, but just digging holes is not satisfying enough, and they need a clear goal or a motivation. Zafar decides to give them a goal they can work towards. He takes out an apple and then instantly crushes it in his hand. The students are shocked, wondering when their master learned to do magic. Zafar tells them that it was not a magic trick and then tosses the squeezed apple towards Cest. He says that this is the level of grip strength he wants them to achieve, but they think it is impossible because Zafar has reduced the fresh apple to a dried stick, keeping its skin and seeds the only intact things. There's not even any apple juice on the floor, and Zafar says that it is because he crushed the apple in an instant, vaporizing all the juice. He then decides to give his students another demonstration about what proper grip strength can do. He takes out a wooden block and places it on the table, telling them that if they tighten their fist right at the moment of impact, it can generate a powerful impact even without winding up their punches. He places his fist next to the block and then suddenly sends it flying just by forming his fist rapidly at the last moment. He tells his surprised students that this 0-inch punch is his ultimate move that he came up with after years of practice and experiment. Cest picks up the wooden block that has been obliterated by the 0-inch punch, and he wonders if he can also do that one day. Soon after that, their ship lands in a port in Sicily, where hundreds of ships and boats are already parked. The city is preparing for the upcoming fighting tournament, and it is at its liveliest. There are fighters from all walks of life in all areas there, including a mild-mannered country bumpkin named Solon, who is the champion of their version of the Olympics. There is also the ferocious Viking warrior named Loki, whose huge build has earned him the nickname of the Giant. There is a hunter from Africa named Mutanga, as well as a freed slave named Iota, who doesn't look like much of a fighter. There are other warriors who have come from different countries to prove their strength and win the grand prize in the tournament. However, there are some warriors from the Imperial Roman army who think that this tournament will just be like a warm-up for them. They include Mami's long-lost brother Adonis and also the blonde boy named Ruska. As they are looking down on their opponents, Ruska suddenly spots Cest and he sees him too. However, he is busy hauling some load and neither of them has time to catch up with each other. Later, Cest goes to wash the bloodstains off his clothes when suddenly a woman passes next to him. Just by seeing her back profile, Cest recognizes her as Rofelixin, Emperor Miro's attendant. He calls out to her, and she's glad to see Cest again after such a long time. She is not surprised to learn that he has come here after winning the qualifier, and just then Ruska and his group also arrive there. Ruska walks towards Cest, who gets intimidated on seeing how much he has grown, and the atmosphere between them gets tense. Rofelixin goes to the remaining two people because they have some work to do, and Ruska decides to join them. Cest tries to talk to him, but Ruska says that he is not free right now. He says that he can make some time tomorrow morning and tells Cest to meet him at this exact spot. The next morning, Ruska comes there as Cest is shadowboxing and asks what he wanted to talk about. Cest says that he just wanted to catch up on lost time because he left Rome in a hurry, and now he doesn't know how things have changed. Ruska says that he doesn't have time for needless chatter. He tells Cess that people like him are underestimating how brutal the tournament will be. He advises him to withdraw right now, because that will save him from humbling defeats and maybe even from losing his life. Cess gets furious at this, saying that he won't give up because fighting is the only thing he knows, and he will seize his freedom using his fists.